our spaceship to the universe. Welcome. You are looking fantastic.
Sylke.
Hello, Karl-Heinz. Yeah, welcome to Lebenskünstler. This is the first English version, so it's for all the English-speaking people out there. We are living in Germany, so if you're wondering what accent we have.
Bavarian accent. I have a Bavarian accent.
Yes, Bavarian German English.
Yes.
Yes. So today we will talk about the life of Karl-Heinz Rauscher. Karl-Heinz Rauscher is a doctor and is a shamanic healer as well. And it's very interesting for this podcast and for this channel because, as you know, I always talk about spirituality, about art, about creativity, and about how can we live a good life. Yeah. And
yeah, thank you, Sylke, that you invite me here to your studio in Langeries in Bavaria. I like to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm very, very happy that we are doing this again because we did one interview in German, but we want to do it in English because it's so good to have a language which very many people can listen to.
Yes, well, I'm working in so many countries now, and English is good.
English is
good. It's good for the world.
Yeah. So let us start from the point that you introduce yourself to the listeners and to the viewers and tell us something about yourself.
Well, I am a medical doctor, so I studied medicine in Munich and in Yale University in the United States. And then I was trained as a specialist for internal medicine here in Bavaria in Memmingen for 10 years. And at this time I already knew that just to look at the body, if you want to understand why somebody is ill, is not enough. You need a broader view. So what I did, I was then looking at the soul. And when I was a medical student already, I was reading books from Freud, Jung, Mitscherlich, also philosophy. And then in Memmingen there was a chief doctor who brought me into a near psychosomatic clinic. Psycho is soul and soma is body, so psychosomatic clinic, that means people who have a disease and think it might be also caused by the soul or soul issues were there, and so we really thought we are avant-garde to think that a human being is a unity between body, soul, and spirit. And so we could really help more people, also including the soul, into the view. And then there, the spirit was something which I didn't understand in that time, like 25 years ago, so well. But the chief doctor there, his name was Dr. Staus, he already integrated spirituality into his concept of healing. Mm-hmm. So and then I understood over time, over the decades, what this could really be. Well, this was my start with psychotherapy, and in addition to being a doctor for the body, internal medicine. And then I remember this one day when I was on the conference, then I discovered a book in a book table there, and it was the first book from Bert Hellinger and Gunther Weber, who is a German psychiatrist, and they were writing about family constellations. And I read this book in vacation in Italy, in Tuscany. I remember that very well. And when I read it, I said, okay, this is really something special. Because then Bert Hellinger was not looking at the individual person as just a unit between body, soul, and spirit, but also he said you can only understand a human being if you know about and learn about the connections where a human being is connected to. And the first thing which we were thinking, and they were thinking and reading and writing about was the family system. So that you are a part of your family of origin. And so what I learned was that trauma in former generations and unresolved trauma can create an energy in the family who is disturbing life and can be forwarded and can be inherited to the next generations. And so you can be sick, you can have a disease, or you can have you can be depressed by unresolved trauma in former generations of your family system. So this was a new concept, and then we really could. I trained myself then. I went to Bert Hellinger and his first row of students, which was Gunther Weber, of course, also. And I learned that method, and I used it in that psychosomatic clinic. Mm-hmm. And then we could really help people which we couldn't with normal psychotherapy which we used before that. Mm-hmm. Well, and then they could not really integrate that the family constellation work into this concept of that clinic. Mm-hmm. They would have to change everything, and they couldn't do that so fast. Yeah. So I left this clinic, and I opened my own private practice. This is 25 years ago, and since then I'm doing this work.
Yeah.
Yeah, with body symptoms, body diseases, also mental diseases, depression, anxiety disorders, or just other disturbances of life, like you have a problem with your relationship or with your children or with your work. This was then the next system where you could apply systemic constellation work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, wow.
Yeah.
So thank you for all the information. What I'm wondering about is how it's so easy to talk about something that you already created, that you can stand here and say, okay, I have this clinic now by myself, my private clinic, where all the people come and I do this. But was it really that easy to go that way from you go to jail, you study medicine, you go to the psychosomatic clinic, and then you change everything in the concept? It's not that everyone is looking in life that way, that you... Was it easy for you?
It wasn't really jail.
Yeah.
It wasn't really jail, Gefängnis. It was Yale University.
Oh, yeah. So yeah,
just
I meant this.
People who see that. But when you say that it was in jail, it was not. And hopefully
it's
never
true.
will
It's
be.
only my English. Yale.
Yale University, yes, and Munich, of course. Well, it is a path to really think differently, have the freedom to go to the edge of understanding of your time and also your colleagues and your profession. And many physicians nowadays, they still don't know about this energetic influences and how to heal it. They don't know it, and many of them, they don't want to know it because it would explode their frame of thinking.
Yeah.
But I was for some reason I'm one of those who have no problems with boundaries of thinking. I always think beyond boundaries, so it was not difficult for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
But would you say there was one special moment or one special point in your life that you really knew that you want to change this and you want to go this path?
Well, the path to understand the human being was like slowly evolving, slowly emerging. But there was one point in my life which was really life-changing, and this was a spiritual experience 26 years ago.
Okay.
And this was already still the time when I was employed as a doctor in this psychosomatic clinic in Bavaria. Bad Grünenbach is the name. And then I was just having a week as a retreat in the Black Forest. I remember that very well. And I had 1 week just for me. I had psychotherapy for me. I had a lot of time in between the sessions. And then I just had an experience of an out-of-body experience where I knew within 3 or 4 minutes, I just knew that everything is one, that there is unity everywhere. So I saw myself from outside. I was in the stars, like in the tree, like in myself for a few minutes. And the knowledge was, and the insight was, it's all one. And then in the same time, like I woke up from out of this this experience, knowing that this knowledge is not only for me. So I had to somehow do something to bring it in a form so others could also maybe have an experience like this, or even or that they heard about it, the possibility that the unity is the life force in life in every situation. So, and this was so big task for me that I understood I cannot really do that being employed. So I quit that job the next week. Well, I had to still work a few months there, but I knew I had to leave. And then I tried to somehow work towards that. It was not so easy. How do you do that? To tell people it's all one, because you normally you have the opposite. You have the you are another person than me,
yes.
and you people out there, you are other persons, but on the others, but the deeper insight is we are not separate. We are interconnected. And how do you tell people that? So it took me a while, like almost 20 years, that I was able to write books about it, which I did, and to even write a screenplay about it. And but after a few months trying to somehow bring that to people, I didn't earn any money, so I had to earn money again. And I knew if I would work as a doctor again, I would work with constellation work. Because I thought this is the most powerful way to heal. And I did that, and I opened my private practice, and people came and had the experience of a family constellation.
Okay.
And so it all started there. And then after a few years, I understood doing a family constellation, bringing together people who were separated but belonged together in the clan, is also something how to recreate unity of separate positions or separate souls, really, who belong together, but they don't know each other. They maybe somebody is forgotten, and then you bring them into the consciousness of the client, and this is also creating unity. So I was in that tradition of forming unity, of being, bringing this consciousness of unity to people. I was standing in that tradition already, doing this work, and it really is in everything I'm doing. Is the unity and the knowledge about that everything is connected to everything is really always there.
Okay, that's very beautiful. Very good very good work.
Thank you.
I'm interested in understanding more precisely what's happening in this work, in this systemic constellation work that you're doing. For example, I have a question, because for all the German people out there, all that happened in this country and that we are still carrying in the families and everywhere. And for example, you have someone who is very sick and is coming to you and he is in big pain.
Mm-hmm.
And how does this system work with something like that, for example?
Okay, well, I answer the first question.
Yes.
How does systemic constellation work really work?
Yeah.
To understand how that goes, you have to know that all the informations about our human relationships and former events are invisibly stored in the air, like in a special Wi-Fi field.
Yeah.
And in a technical Wi-Fi field, you have technical receivers. You have a phone, a smartphone, a laptop, or a computer, or a TV, and then you can get access to that in technical Wi-Fi field. Mm-hmm. You see movies. You can listen to phone calls. You see billions of websites. And Bert Hellinger, who discovered systemic constellation work for our Western world at least, he discovered that there is also a receiver for this for the informations about our human relationships and former events, and that this receiver we are as human beings, we are those receivers. So we have the ability as human beings with our intuitive perception to get access to that information. But this does not happen if you just sit there and have coffee with each other. You need a certain frame. And the frame is the systemic constellation work. Mm-hmm. And it's like this. You have it's a spatial constellation. So you need a fairly big room, and then you put the positions of the system, for example, the family system, into that room, like the father, mother, and yourself, or your brothers and sisters, or grandparents, and these positions are then occupied by representatives, by people out of a therapy group, or in the one-to-one situation in my private practice. And I do this duty, and I go from position to position, one after the other, to gather this information. And the thing is that the people who stand there as a representative in a position, for example, for the father or the mother or yourself, they start to feel like those people as soon as they stand there. So they have body symptoms, body feelings, and also mental feelings. Somebody could maybe feel depressed or joyful, or drawn to somebody in love, or being fearful of somebody over there. And so these informations are showing through the representatives. Mm-hmm. And then you have a feeling how the system works, where your disease or where your disturbance with your man or woman might come from, and you go back to from generation to generation till the real cause. And this could be, as this is your second question, maybe how this relates to collective trauma like war. This is a special situation when you have trauma, personal trauma and collective trauma in a former generation of your family. Then feelings like unresolved grief, or rage, or even blocked love is somehow in the energy field of your family, even a long time before you were born into it. Okay. Then you are born into a family like this, and you have all those feelings like in the air, mm-hmm. unspokenly, and they affect yourself. And then after a while, you feel like like it would be your feelings, and that can disturb your life, or even kill you sometimes. There are people who are so depressed because of war crimes or in the family that they commit suicide. So it's really also a serious serious things to deal with if you do constellation work. But this is the good news. You can change those energies and those feelings, and you can find a way to give back the energetic burden to the souls and the people in former generations of your family.
Okay.
That's what you do in the solution healing movements within the constellation. Then at the end.
Mm-hmm. That's very good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you are also doing this not only for the family, you are also doing this for organs, for example. And is it the same that you?
Yeah, well, it started all with Bert Hellinger in Germany 40 years ago. With family system,
yes,
as part of family therapy. And then we saw after a while that the constellation work, the information, to get information out of somehow informational field or special Wi-Fi field, that you can use this method also with other systems. So family systems are only one possibility to use that. You can use it also in business systems, where you have also relationships between people, working people, and also with customers, for example, or with a product. So it's all this. Those positions are also forming a system, and it could work well, or it could have problems with it, and a constellation would tell you more about it. Or this was one of my developments to use it with body systems, like organ systems, or also you as a human being have somehow a connection to your disease or to your symptom, a pain, for example. So this is also a connection. This is also a system. So you can also set up a position for your pain, or for your heart disease, or even for the organ, for your heart, or for the brain, and learn something about it. So organs and diseases and symptoms get a voice with constellation work, which is highly interesting if you want to move towards healing.
That's a good answer, because it leads me to my next question, because you are having this special, I don't know how to call it. In German, it's Gabe.
Ability,
yeah. You have this ability with this healing voices. And maybe you want to describe, what do you mean with healing voices?
Well, healing voices are an energetic shamanic healing method, which developed itself in my work of the last 20 years. So I say that I did not develop it. It developed itself in my work. So I never thought of doing something like that, of doing shamanic work. And when I was, it was like 15 or 17 years ago when I first had contact with the healing voices. And this was in an indigenous sweat lodge. I was then already a sweat lodge leader in that time. I had contact with many shamans in my life. And then in the first course of a sweat lodge, it's hot, it's humid, it's dark, and it's all like a cleansing ritual for body, soul, and spirit. And you try to somehow get energy into flow. Blocked energy is always disease. Flowing energy is always healing. So what you try to do is to bring blocked feelings into flow in that first course of a sweat lodge. So you do it with a voice. So you invite people. Maybe there are 20 people sitting around in the circle, in the dark, and you have hot, really gluing hot stones in the middle, and you pour water on it. It's really hot, and then you invite people to make a sound like, oh, like just to follow the movement, to follow it. So just to bring somehow a movement into the system. And we always did it together. Then it's like a song the whole group does together. It's just evolving from the moment. But in this special sweat lodge, I had different sounds, which I normally didn't do. And I was very good at that time already, of following a movement, who is coming from inside or outside, just following it. And I did, and with a high sound, I remember that very clearly. That was deeper, but the effect was that everybody else fell silent. Mm-hmm. And several of those people in the sweat lodge, they were crying, were in tears, because they felt somehow healing in some themselves. And then later on, we were sitting after the sweat lodge around the fire outside. They asked me, "What was that?" And I said, I honestly don't know. I don't know what it was. I just felt like a medium for some healing energies, that's clear. But what it really was and where it came from, I didn't know. Because there were not only sounds, there were also like words from an ancient languages, which I didn't know either. So, but I said, okay, that's interesting, but I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to use it in my practice as a doctor. It was too much for me in that time. I was a specialist for internal medicine. I was a psychotherapist. I was a systemic constellator. I was already trainer for systemic constellation work. I said, I'm not a shaman. I'm just not. I had the feeling that, and I was reading that and hearing that from people, that if the shamans, they choose their students. Mm-hmm. And then you have to go there, and if you agree, and then you learn that, and you need years to really be a good healer. And I wasn't that. I didn't do it. But then my sister was years later. She was visiting, and she got some heart problem in the middle of the night, emergency situation. And I am an emergency doctor. I was out there for 10 years on the street as an emergency doctor also, but I didn't have the medication in the house. So before calling the real emergency doctor from the hospital right there, I just said, okay, maybe I try that, and I just did it, healing voices with gestures and sounds, and after 5 minutes she was fine. And it couldn't be quicker with medication or with some drugs. So I had several of those experiences within the family, but still I didn't want to do it with clients. And then again, years later, I became sick myself for weeks, and then I was pretty sure I had a brain tumor. The symptoms were like that, and I couldn't work for several weeks. And then the day before they did the test, the MRT, I couldn't sleep, and I said, okay, when I really have that, it would be a pity if my neighbor would have that ability to heal and just wouldn't dare to do it. So I understood maybe I don't have the right to keep that from my clients or from the world, really. So I made a deal with myself that, okay, if I don't find anything, if I get healthy again, I will do it. And they didn't find anything, and 3 days later I've lost all my symptoms. And so I put it in front of my homepage, and so this is like already like 15 years ago, something like that, or 10 years, or 12. People can come and have the experience of healing voices. So you would just lay on a massage bed, and I ask those healing energies which work in healing voices to heal that person, and then it goes through gestures and sounds. And I'm just the medium. I don't interfere with it at all. this was for years the work with healing voices. And then, like 4 years ago, I started to also use it in constellations, in the systemic constellation work. And it was profound and astonishing what happened then. So, because those healing energies, they really heal also the souls of the ones who already passed away, like victims, perpetrators, and several generations, back 3 or 4 generations. So this was really, this is very, still today, if I do it, and I do it every day, my practice here in Bartels or in my workshops worldwide, it's all very astonishing, amazing healing effects. And I'm not doing it. I'm just a medium for those energies. And isn't that great that we have those energies everywhere? They are also like in a special Wi-Fi field. They are here everywhere, in the air, invisible in the air. But they don't. Obviously, they cannot be effective unless a human being is ready to lend them a body for gestures and voice for sounds for a few minutes and work as a medium. And then they have the ability to really heal us, also on a collective level, which is very interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a present, I could say. It's a very magical.
Yeah, it's a gift.
It's a gift.
Yeah.
A present.
It's a gift, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So my questions are already finished, but I want to give you space to tell the people out there anything which you feel you want to tell them now.
Yeah, well, there is one thing. I'm also a writer. I write books about philosophy, also novels, stage plays, and also screenplays. And the philosophy which I'm writing about is, I call it principle of unity. Everything is connected to everything. And this, the last book about it was published 2017 in German. And then, interestingly enough, I just tried to adapt that knowledge, the fact that everything is connected to everything, to the ability to live in a community. So I wrote another book, and it's published last year, 2018, and it's called Atlantis, a new form of community. And it's still not in English right now, but it's right now it's translated into Spanish, and it will be published this year in Buenos Aires, and hopefully there will be an English version soon. And there are just two or three things to know if you want to be a part of the community Atlantis. And this is just shortly, but maybe interesting to just know. If you want to be a part of this community, you have to somehow buy a ticket. And you buy the ticket, and what you pay is not money. You pay your disrespect. You give your disrespect away. The disrespect to yourself, you give up, and the disrespect to other people, you give up. And if you are able to do that, then you're in the community Atlantis. Or what the symbol is for the community is also what I call a circle of all. You're part of that. And if you start to also then be disrespectful, which happens fairly often then because you're used to that, you're out of that. But you can also then give it up, and you have the new ticket, you're in. And then you're standing there, and everybody has a right to stand there, regardless of color, nationality, or whatever. And then the next thing is that all the other people, they don't have to change. They just can stay like they are. So you don't take care. They may change. You change. You change your inner attitude by respecting yourself and respecting everybody else. So you meet people on eye level. And this is community Atlantis. And then it's easy that you give something into the middle, which you have or which you don't need, or you have a lot of, like, could be money, it could be also an ability or something which you really can do very well, and just to give it into the middle for everybody. And then, there's life in this community. Well, and this is this is, you remember my spiritual experience in the Black Forest. Here it comes again. Like everything is connected to everything. This is unity. So, and now I'm in this tradition. I wrote those books, and in this traditions there will be also workshops to that. The first workshop will be in November this year, 2019, near Buenos Aires. And then I hope to do those workshops also in other countries to bring the consciousness of unity to people.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah. And constellation work and healing voices are going with it very well, because you if you don't have respect for yourself, it might be that there is a disturbing energy from former generations of your family, or you are not able to respect yourself because you had a trauma in your life, in childhood maybe, or even it could be that you had a trauma, an unresolved trauma in a former life. And if you don't see it, if that is in your shadow, in the unconscious part, then it's not so easy to respect yourself just by free will, by will. You need somehow to bring light into those shadows, to really know yourself and free your potentials. And you can do that very well with systemic constellation work combined with healing voices, and then you have more success to really be part then of this worldwide community Atlantis, because it's easier then to respect yourself, and then you can respect others too. And buy that ticket.
Yeah, that makes total sense. You can buy this ticket in the online shop. By giving up disrespect. Yeah. And everybody can try it right now. Give it up. And maybe you can print out something, or you can create a ticket, and you can play with it. Yeah. That would be. And it would be maybe good to have this ticket, And if you have disrespectful thoughts, it could be that this ticket gets really hot in your pocket. Yeah, and you oh no, okay, what did I do? So you go back and you reverse your thoughts, and you establish respect for yourself and for the others, and also for the world, for Mother Earth, for everything really. And this is what we need for as humanity. Yeah, for the future. Yeah, that's really true. And this is another, which we didn't mention so far, another system where we can apply systemic constellation work is the international communities, international relationships between nations. And to solve international conflicts, which also would serve, the future, of course, of humanity. And then we might end up, what I always say, to establish humanity as a nation. So there is no nation outside of humanity. You don't have to fight anymore. Yeah, that would be very nice. Yeah. That's big and very good vision. Yeah. Yes. And thank you, Sylke, that you invited me for that interview, and that I could talk about it and tell people what I'm standing for. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. It's a little bit cozy, as you can see, because it's so nice. And it's all started in Bad Tölz, a little town in Bavaria here in the Alps, in a little coffee shop. Yeah. In a little
Mezzo
coffee. Yes.
coffee shop, Bartels.
We met there.
Yeah.
We met very, very different, nice people there.
Yeah,
It's
that's
very
true.
cool.
Yeah.
So I will put all the links to the homepage and to the books into the show notes, so you can look there if you're interested. And when the book Atlantis will be translated in English, I will post it there.
And hopefully
maybe you will translate it in English.
Yes, also the other books could be translated in English. Principle of Unity. My novel, The Heart of Silence.
Oh.
Which tells you everything about also how, the background of constellation work and shamanic healing.
That's very good.
As a fiction thriller.
Cool.
Yeah, you could read it. It's in German.
Yeah. I can read
and
it.
Maybe you people can read it later if somebody really translates it into English, which I hope. What I hope.
Yeah, so thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for your time, because it's always very precious when you invest your time with thoughts like this. It's good.
Yeah, thank you for listening to us.
Yeah. So take care, and see and hear you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.